see unprecedented need through our communities. You all are experiencing it on the ground every day. The numbers that Angie referenced are astounding. The amount of difference that we're making is tremendous. We continue to appreciate the partnership on the emergency food program. You all do such an amazing job at ensuring that nothing gets wasted and that the food gets to our most needy and vulnerable community members as quickly, efficiently, and effectively as possible. So I'm looking forward to continuing to expand that partnership. You know, one of the things that I think the pandemic has done is it has really identified where the gaps are in our ability to serve our communities. And so I know you all have been very much in triage mode, trying to stop the bleeding and help as many people as possible. That's certainly been my experience in the year that I've been the director. But I'm looking forward to us turning the corner on that reality and starting to really dig in on how we can bridge those gaps that folks are experiencing in our communities and struggling with every day. You know, we'll continue to look for opportunities to improve our collaborations, and certainly have very much appreciated the disposition of everyone in this conversation as to how the entire set of services across the spectrum can better holistically meet family needs. As we think through emerging stronger out of this pandemic, you know, it's been oft said, never waste a good crisis. And I really believe that we've had an opportunity to identify the gaps, search for opportunities for best practices. And I think it's incumbent upon every one of us to think through, as we emerge out of this pandemic, how we maintain the momentum of collaboration, human kindness, and you know, the resolution of significant issues for folks. You know, as we've seen from every single recession that this country has faced, those at the top of the income spectrum recover the fastest. Those lower on the income spectrum feel the brunt of it for far much longer. So, you know, as we think through all of the celebrating around the recovery that is occurring and will continue to occur, we really need to continue to focus on those individuals that are being left behind by the recovery, helping them meet their basic needs so they can be focused on caring for their families and identifying ways to enter and succeed in the 21st century workforce, the post-pandemic workforce, which I think you all are experiencing right now, has drastically changed from what it used to be. So we will continue to focus on that. We will continue to focus on the pathways to ending hunger, which include primarily meeting those basic hierarchy of needs requirements, and then helping individuals succeed and engage in the workforce. I think, you know, we'll continue to work with you all on holistic solutions. We all have our specific targeted work that we do day in and day out, but every single individual on this call understands that every person that presents for services at a food bank does not just have that one need. It's not that, you know, they eat and all of a sudden their lives are perfect. There's ongoing community support needs that are required. So as Angie mentioned, I'll reinforce, you know, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. You all are so integral to the success of our Arizona communities that if you don't have anything to give, we can't succeed as a state. So make sure that you take time to reflect, have some self-care. Hopefully you can step away from your work and get some rest, but I just want to say thank you for everything that you've done, everything that you continue to do, and look forward to a far stronger Arizona and a far healthier and more well-fed Arizona as we move forward from here. So thanks again, Angie, for giving me some time this morning. I hope you have a wonderful conference, and it really is such a pleasure for me to be engaged with such an amazing group of people. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Weishart, for your recognition of a long recovery and for the recognition of our network in making sure that folks have what they need at this time and moving ahead. So second, I would like to welcome Director Alan Clark. Alan serves as the Director of the Arizona Division of Emergency Management, which is part of the Department of Emergency and Military Affairs. He manages the state's emergency preparedness, response, recovery, mitigation efforts, and supports local and tribal efforts. In addition to his long career in public safety and emergency management, Director Clark has served as a member of the National Guard. He knows firsthand how critical those missions are, and this year was certainly no different as we lost volunteers and saw a tremendous increase in demand. A huge thank you goes to DEMA and to Director Clark and to the National Guard for the support they provided to food banks and agencies across the state this year. So thank you to Director Clark, and I'll turn it over to you.
Good morning, Angie. Good morning, team. Can you all hear me? Okay, you can hear me. Great. I need a super cool background like Angie has, so I'm going to have my team develop one of those because I just don't feel important. And then we got Director Weishart, who's got nice room behind him, and all I got is bright light. Sorry about that if it's bad. So, hey, so team, it's an honor and a privilege to talk to this group of individuals, to talk to all of you, because I must say that I'm very humbled by the work that you've done over the last year. I followed the work through the use of the National Guard and through emergency management, but I'm extremely humbled to be in the presence of a group of individuals that care as much as you care. Oftentimes we don't see that in emergency management. Oftentimes we see those people that rise to the top aren't necessarily the ones that care, but they're the loudest. So thank you very much for all that you do, and I will reiterate that as I go through my. Angie, you said I have 45 minutes to talk. Is that what? Trust me, I'd lose myself after 5, so it won't be long. So when I was talking to April and the team about what the focus of this meeting was, it was really where we were, where we've come from, and what we need to plan for in the future. And I'll speak specifically to emergency management in those areas. This is going to sound really weird, but I have to tell you, from an emergency preparedness perspective, the pandemic is probably the best thing that ever happened to us as far as plans, writing plans, implementing plans. And let me explain that. It's a very tragic event. I'm not making light of it. But for years and years and years, at the state level, at the national level, even at the local level, we prepared emergency plans for activation, response, recovery. And to be honest with you, many of those plans that we prepared and spent lots of time and lots of money on have been set to the side because we didn't have it right. All the way from pod vaccines, appointed dispensing vaccines, and other components. The pandemic has forced us to actually go operational and truly figure out what it is that we're going to need to operate. And so from that perspective, we've gained a ton of knowledge over the last year and a half on exactly what it is that we're going to need to do if and when we face something like this in the future. So now we have actionable plans. Your plans are no different. We face many challenges in the food bank industry in supporting our communities. I'll talk about some of those in a few minutes. It's my understanding that those in attendance here today are representatives from food banks, both large and small. And I have to stress that no matter your size, no matter what you brought to the game, it mattered and it made a difference. And so I greatly, greatly appreciate that. It's all about a team effort. And again, if you were the small church that helped 2 people in a day or 1 person in a day, or you were the large site that helped thousands, it all matters. And it makes a difference. And I appreciate that. So a little about me, and I know that you heard my bio, which is embarrassing to me because I don't like the attention. But I will tell you that prior to this, I worked at Arizona State University as the emergency manager. So I've been in this fight since January 26th of 2020. If you recall, the first COVID case involved an ASU student. And I was on the phone with Kara Christ that long ago, talking about how we were going to isolate, quarantine, and wraparound services and all of that kind of stuff. And folks, as you well know, one of the key components to all of this, serving our community, whether or not you were COVID positive or whether you were just trying to assist your family, food is important. Food is a necessity, and nourishment is a necessity to sustain life. And so without your tireless work and efforts, many out there would not be in the positions they are today in order to take care of their families. So again, thank you very much. I've been told that to date we've distributed about 214 million pounds of food. What that number doesn't tell me and doesn't tell you is the number of lives that have been impacted by your tireless efforts. So a pound of food can equate to a certain number of family members or families being served. But folks, your generosity and your hospitality has gone far greater than the number of pounds of food that we have distributed. And I can't even begin to tell you probably the millions of people that have been impacted either by your direct service or services felt by others. So again, a deceiving number, a large number, but deceiving as far as the actual impact. And again, thank you. So some of the challenges we faced, and Angie mentioned one of these that is most critical, I believe, in the eyes of what we faced and what we will continue to face. We saw a reduction in volunteers, and so then we brought in with an increased need. And so we brought in the National Guard to assist, and many volunteers continued to strive and push forward. But we did see a reduction in our volunteer force and continue. How are we going to sustain operations with not being able to communicate in person or meet with people in person as they used to walk into a lot of the sites? Now we had to socially distance. The one big one that Angie mentioned and that I will and Director Weishart mentioned that I will agree upon and expound upon here a little bit is overcoming your own personal fears. Folks, you were called to task during a time when we didn't even know what COVID was. How do you get it? How is it transferred? How infectious is it? And many of you, well, I'm going to guess all of you that are on this phone call today, went in, sacrificed your personal health when we didn't know what we were facing. And you said, that's okay. I still need to be there for the community. I still need to be there for the people of the community. And folks, I can't tell you how a selfishless act that is, and just one that humbles me greatly. Thank you. Self-care, we talked about it. I'm sure that many of your families didn't understand what you were doing in these times. As a law enforcement professional for 23 years, retired, self-care is one of the biggest things we have to focus on moving forward. We have to take care of you. We have to take care of your families. And so listen to the presentations today that are going to talk about how to survive what you've been through and what you're going to face in the future, because it will be extremely important for you and your families. And naturally, we face many other challenges. As has been mentioned a couple times here, my team has been engaged in this fight since day one. Ashley McCooch, who many of you know, is a phenomenal member of our team, and she works tirelessly with your organizations to keep us in the know and to help however we can. In addition, we brought the National Guard to bear. One of the things to remember about the National Guard is they are our citizen soldiers. They have spoken so many times when I've traveled around the food banks. They cannot tell me in words how proud they are to perform the mission that they've been asked to perform. Many of them say things like, we can go overseas and that matters, but there's nothing that matters more than doing our mission right here in the state of Arizona to help our own brothers and sisters, neighbors, family members, whatever it may be. And so they've been extremely proud to be part of this mission. Not since World War II have we activated the National Guard in the capacity that they've been activated for the fight against COVID. And that's something to be admired and also be proud of as they've been involved in that. They are extremely proud to serve. So moving forward, what do we face? Well, we face a lot of unknowns. And the good part about this group is you've already faced a lot of unknowns and you know how to pivot. In emergency management and first response, we say that the first plan never survives the first attack, or the original plan never survives the first attack, nor will it moving forward. We can plan, but we're still going to have to pivot on those days where things come up that we just didn't plan for. We know that the Guard is not a permanent fixture. It's not an endless source of resource. And so how do we plan and how do we get back into business? How do we get volunteers back into our food service industry, back into this industry? And I know that many of you, I've heard on the briefings, that many of you are already doing this because the demand or the ask for Guard services is actually reducing, declining, because we are starting to work different modes of operation, and we're also starting to get other volunteers back into our food service industry, and thank you for that push. Finally, I'm just going to say that I often equate my team, and I would equate this team to, I used to coach football, and I used to coach offensive line in football. For those of you who don't know, that's the line that's in front of the quarterback, the prima donna that gets all of the focus, all of the highlight reel, all of the media. But folks, it's the offensive line that truly does all the heavy lift. They're the ones that are in the trenches. They're the ones that are daily doing the work. And I equate my team, and proudly equate my team and this team, to the offensive line of any organization, any football team, because without us, there wouldn't be a football game. And without us, we wouldn't be marching down the field and scoring on a daily basis like we score. So thank you very much for everything that you do. Angie, thank you very much for allowing me a few minutes of opening comments here. I can't tell you how humbled I am to speak to this group, because you truly have been the ones that have been the tip of the spear and making it happen. Thank you, Angie.
Thank you, Director Clark, and thank you obviously to National Guard members. They have been so critical. I saw many folks nodding their head about how important the Guard has been to our operations over the last few months. So finally, I want to introduce our next speaker, our keynote speaker for the morning. Mr. Bernard Boudreaux is the Director of New Strategies for the Nonprofit Leaders at Georgetown University. His job as matchmaker for corporate and foundational partners to 1,200 nonprofit organizations has been critical both currently and prior to COVID. Before that, he was with the Target Corporation for more than 30 years, leading various initiatives on stakeholder engagement, diversity and inclusion, reputation management, and executive level board placement. Bernard speaks with hundreds of people who work at and run volunteer nonprofit organizations every day, and he knows what we go through to make sure that our organizations run and thrive, and how difficult that can be some days. He certainly knows the challenges of us meeting our missions, and he's here to help. So I see that, Bernard, that hair and makeup has arrived at your home to make sure that you get camera ready. That's very exciting. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Angie. Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. This is so good. This is so good for me. This is a nice, beautiful Tuesday morning, and to spend it with you, spend a little bit of time with you, brings my heart joy. So, I want to thank you all for getting up early, getting prepped, and doing this. I really want to thank the Arizona Food Bank Network for inviting me here. But what I really want to thank you all for, and you're going to get tired of hearing it today, but I'm hoping it's going to carry on, is thanking you for the work that you do every single day. Mr. Clark just said thank you. Before we had Director Weishart talking and thanking you. Of course, Angie opened by thanking you, but I have to thank you because the work that you do every day is incredible. And the difference that you make truly makes a difference. And you need to know that, and you need to hear that. And not just because of the pandemic, and we'll talk about pandemic later, we'll talk about stuff later, but I want to thank you and open up with thank you and let you know that I thank you. I would prefer to look each of you in your eye and say, Wendy, thank you. Andy, thank you. Tristan, thank you. I want to do that 198 times or however many people are on this call, but of course I can't, because most of you I can't see, and secondly, I'm not there. I'm calling you from Oakland, California. So I have to, what I'm going to do is do my magical magician thing and just cast a huge thank you over all of you and let it fall on your shoulders, hopefully let it sink in and let you know that it's truly a heartfelt thank you. Thank you. Okay, feel it, bring it in, accept it, know that it's real. Good morning. So as Angie said, my name is Bernard Boudreaux, and my day job is with Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. I work with hundreds of nonprofit leaders every year to help them build strategies to diversify and grow their revenue, period. Our program is purely on revenue, diversifying and growing your revenue. We're mission agnostic, don't care. Don't care if you free the ferrets, don't care if you feed the hungry, don't care if you build houses. Our point is you're a nonprofit organization, you need revenue. We're gonna help you build strategies for the revenue. Because regardless of what your mission is, if you don't have money, you can't bring that mission to life. It's just that simple. A couple of folks from Arizona have attended our program. So St. Mary's Food Bank, Marcos attended, and then Arizona Food Bank Network, Terry attended. So if you got questions on the program, check in with them. They'll give you the real skinny on it, because I'm going to tell you everything wonderful about it and how beautiful it is and how it changes the world and everybody leaves there with puppies and kittens and happiness. They'll tell you the real scoop. But today, what I'm really going to talk about is to get down and dirty and talk about the F word. I said the F word. That's true. I did. And that's what we're going to talk about. Actually, we're going to talk about several F words and why I think those F words are important to you. Now, I'm going to serve it buffet style. So some of it you may want to pass on and say, that's not really for me. I'm just going to skip that. Well, I'm okay with that, because the person right next to you, I guarantee you, Leah's going to say, oh, that's good. Let me write that down. I'm going to text that. So just know that if it ain't for you, it may be for the person right next to you. So the first F I'm going to talk about really briefly, and it's not really one of my Fs that I'm going to talk about, but I have to cover it. It's food. It's food. That's one of the things that we all here have in common. I love food. I love food. I love to eat it. I love to grow it. I'm a gardener. I love to play with it. I love to give it. I love to get it. I like to talk about it. I love food. I even love the word food. And make no mistake, in English, food is a 4-letter word. Food. You know, it can be a question. Food? It can be a statement. Food. It can be a form of gratitude. Food. And it can be excitement. Food! Now, let's be honest. How many times have you gone in the break room, saw some food in there, and the first thing you thought was, food? Okay, really? Yep, I see you, Wendy. I pegged you as a foodie when I first saw you on here. I love any gathering with food, any gathering. In my family, there was no such thing as a gathering without food. It doesn't matter what it is. Be a wedding, be a funeral, be a graduation, be a birthday, be a sporting event. It's Tuesday. Food! That's how I roll. But if there's one cause that I double down on with my time, my talent, and my treasure, it's food. The fact that 1 in every 6 people in the United States experiencing food insecurity, it's outrageous and it's unacceptable to me. 1 in 6. And the reality is, if you pull the onion back and dig deeper, that 1 in 6 number, you can throw that out the window, because once you start looking at demographics, it's off. Now, you notice I said pull the onion back on that? You get what you see what I did there? Food! Hunger knows no age, no gender, no race, no culture, no religion, and it certainly knows no political affiliation. Hunger. Because food is one of my biggest passions, addressing food insecurity has to be one of my biggest concerns also, and I'm passionate about supporting that. I can't be passionate about one thing, but not passionate about those who don't have access to what I'm passionate about. It just doesn't work that way. Well, it works that way a little bit because I'm also passionate about wine, and I'm not out there pushing for everybody to have access to wine. So let's just put that on the table so folks don't get crazy about that. So that's a little bit of background of how Angie and Terry and Jeff got me here today. Every one of you knows much more about food security and the state of hunger in the United States and in Arizona specifically, much more than I do. So I'm not going to spend any time talking about the state of the state and who's hungry, who's not hungry, how do we get there. I'm not going to talk about that. Y'all can talk to me about that. What I am going to spend time on is highlighting how that F word, yes, I said it again, can hopefully encourage you, and how we can potentially leverage various F words to achieve our collective mission, which is what? To end hunger. It's just that simple, just that simple. The Pulitzer Prize and Nobel Prize winning author, Pearl Buck, said, "Hunger makes any man a thief." Hunger makes any man a thief. Every single one of us knows that statement to be true. And we all can probably think of a real life example where we know that to be true. History the world over is chock full of stories of countless crimes and self-degrading acts that people did driven by the lack of food. And that is the real truth. We're doing the work, you're doing the work to change that. So how do we leverage the F word to address hunger? I'm going to throw out 8 F words to help us address hunger. Y'all can pick and choose which ones you want to work with, or take them all. But the first F word I'm going to start with, and I think this one's the most important, is family. Family. Do what you can, when you can, where you can, while you can, with what you have. Do what you can, when you can, where you can, while you can, with what you had. I used to hear that growing up from my father all the time. It was usually about chores, sometimes about schoolwork, sometimes it was about community work. I was the youngest of 8, and a lot of times I'd have a chore to do. I can't do all of that, that's too much, I can't do it. Do what you can, when you can, where you can, while you can, with what you have. So I was born and grew up in Sonoma County, rural Sonoma County. It's about an hour north of San Francisco. Right now, it's known as the wine country. When I grew up back 150 years ago, it was just the country. There was no wine country. It was very agricultural. My parents had a ranch, and a fairly large ranch, and my mother had a huge garden. She was an avid gardener, had a huge vegetable garden that was year round. I don't have a story to tell on how my family relied on the food bank to make ends meet. Our family was comfortable, but I do have a community food story to share. It was common practice in our community, in our neighborhood, in our area. We didn't even call it a neighborhood, it was rural, where we would share produce, fruit and vegetables from our garden with each other all the time. So-and-so would grow a lot of this, so-and-so would grow a lot of that, and you shared it. That's just what you did. It was no big deal. That's how we got through. But the other thing is, on Sundays, most families would bring boxes of produce to church, and we would share it with each other. Other people from the congregation, oh, you've got extra tomatoes. Oh, you've got some zucchini. Oh, look at that corn, that looks good. And there was always a ton of food there, and I never really understood why there was so much, because there was a lot left over. Well, it turns out most of the food actually was there for those members of the community who did not have. Yes, for somebody from a kid at my perspective, it was for us to trade, to share. But the truth is, all of the neighbors and my mother, everybody else was doing this to provide food in the communities for those who didn't have. As a kid, I didn't know that, but it instilled, and I found out later, but it instilled in me, instilled in my siblings and everybody else in the community, the importance of taking care of your neighbors and sharing the bounty that you have. Without being aware, my parents instilled in me a priority for community service and sharing. And of course, I automatically carried that priority forward because it was factory installed. Families carry forward traditions and behaviors, good and bad. We're going to focus on the good, but you know, the traditions that start in your family carry on generation to generation. We need to start where we are, with our family and our local immediate communities. We can make a tremendous and long-lasting impact by doing that. Often I notice, I work on a lot of food banks, and often I notice at these community food events and food pantry events, staff doesn't bring their family with them to the event. And I know why they don't. It's work. It is work, and it's hard work. You don't want to drag your family to hard work. But if there's ever a place for take your son to work day, take your daughter to work day, it's when we're supporting the community and packaging food and sending food and helping our communities. That's what we want to instill in our next generation of family. About 10 years ago, I was going to volunteer at the Alameda County Food Bank, my local food bank, for Martin Luther King Day, and I knew there would be a bunch of people there. So I decided to bring my mother with me at the time. She was in her mid-80s. She was fairly spry at the time, and the outing would be good to get her out. So we were in the line filling boxes, to each box to go be distributed to a family. And my mother's 2 people down from me, and she's happy. She's in her little spot. They got her a chair, and she's putting stuff in the box. And I noticed that she's pausing a lot and kind of going slow and holding us up. Now, I could be a little bit competitive, just a teeny bit. And our box line was going slow. And I realized that my mother was the holdup. Okay, we gotta work on this. And a couple of people were looking at me like, what's going on with the old lady down there? So I, Mom, go down there. You doing okay? And I noticed that she was paused and her head was down. Is she okay? And then I realized she's praying. Why is she praying? Mom, are you feeling okay? She looked at me and smiled and said, oh, darling, I'm fine. I'm just saying a prayer for the family who's going to get this box. That pissed me off. Really? You are saying a prayer over every single box? I'm thinking this, I didn't say it. She's 85 and she can still carry a punch. And as I'm thinking that you're going to slow us down, and then I realized and got a little choked up. What a wonderful thought. What a wonderful thing. I've been volunteering for years and had not even thought about praying for the recipients of the food. So I thought about it. Now, fortunately, I knew the volunteer manager there. And I called him over and was like, I got a question for you. is it possible for us to stop the entire line, let my mother say a prayer over all of the boxes and all of the volunteers so we can get that done in 45 seconds and then get going? And he's like, Bernard, I'm like, do me this favor. Please do me this favor, Charlie. They did. For my mother, here, Mom, you know, you have an opportunity to take that prayer, and rather than just do that little 20, 30 boxes that you're doing, all of these hundreds of boxes. Well, she was ecstatic to do that. Stopped flying. She did the prayer. She was excited. I am fairly sure that not all of the volunteers appreciated that moment, that stopping that prayer, because we're all different. But I will guarantee you that every family, every person who got that box and opened it up, there was something a little special that flew out of that box. I guarantee you that. And I know that there was an 85-year-old volunteer that day who felt valued and needed, and it made it worthwhile for her. Family. Bring your family along on this journey. Okay, I'm getting a little bit choked up on Mom, so we're going to move on. She passed away 2 years ago, so every time I think about stuff like that, I'm like, I got a good mom. I got a good one. So that's the scoop there. Let's move on to the second F. First F was family. So of course, the next F is going to be friends. We all know that many of our friends are our chosen family. And just like family, we need to introduce them to the work that we do every day. Many of your friends don't really have a clue what you do. They think they know what you do, but they don't know. Introduce your friends to the work that we do and tap into their time and their talent and their treasure. I know it can be uncomfortable to ask friends to give. I'm not asking you to pressure them. I'm asking you to introduce them to the work that you do. That's all. If you were doing a fundraising walk, if you were out there doing a walk, you would ask them to say, oh, sponsor me for the walk. I'm out for fill in the blank walk and we're going to do a 5K, 10K. You wouldn't think twice about asking them. But yet we don't ask them to support the pantry, the food bank. Ask them. We know for a fact, most of you know that the number one reason that people do not volunteer is because they were not asked. The number one reason, I see you, Bobby, you got it. The number one reason people don't donate, they were not asked. Shame on us. Ask your friends. So another food bank story, Alameda County Food Bank. A while ago, previous lifetime ago, I had a 50th birthday and decided to celebrate the birthday. I love events. I love parties. So I decided to celebrate the birthday at the food bank. And again, I know the food bank well, no blah, blah, blah. And I knew they would do it. My birthday's in October. And there's always tons of produce to be sorted in October. Always. They always need hands. So worked with them and we did a private birthday party / food sorting / fundraiser at the food bank. I had 30 friends with me, a little over 30 friends with me. And the point of the day was to pack up a couple of tons of food while listening to some great tunes and music. No dancing, get busy, work the line, have a catered lunch, then see how much money we donate, because everybody had to donate money, everybody. This was a fundraiser. The goal was to raise $10,000. Many of the folks attending had never been to the food bank before. So God bless the food bank, they did tours and they were fun and engaging to introduce these friends to the food bank and what they did, how they did it, and where they did it. Our goal was $10,000. We raised just over $11,000. But more importantly, several of my friends who attended became long-term, substantial donors to that food bank. Most of it was, I didn't even know about this. Now you do. Bring your friends along on the journey. All I got to say about that. Number 3, the third F word, faith. Faith. Now, couple of y'all are raising your eyebrows and said, he did not just say the F word and then say faith, did he? He did. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. It's Hebrews 11:1. Some of y'all are thinking, Tara's like, hello, what does that even mean? And why are you quoting scripture to us? Well, here's the scoop. Here's what it means. Faith is the confidence that what we hope for will actually happen. It gives us assurance about things that we cannot see. Now, we are confident that we can eventually end hunger. We are. We've been doing this for a long time, and yet we persist. We've been working at this for a long, long time, and yet the need is increasing, not decreasing. But we believe we can end hunger. That, my friends, is the substance of things hoped for. In other words, that is faith. Now, let's be honest. Most of the time, we don't really know what happens with the food when it leaves our facilities. We don't. We think we know what happens, but we don't actually know most of the time what happens when the food leaves our facilities. That is the evidence of things not seen. That's faith. You must have faith to do this work every day. And I know you have the faith, because you wouldn't be doing it. I want to encourage you to keep the faith and to pass it on. Because on your bad day, it may be her good day. And on her bad day, it may be your good day. We have to uplift each other and remind each other of the faith. That's all I'm gonna say about faith, unless there's a good gospel choir backing me up and a hot tambourine. So other than that, that's my faith story. That's my that's my third F. We're gonna move on to F number 4, because the clock is ticking. We got time going on. So number 4, faith, is gonna surprise several of you, because you're like, did he run out of Fs? What's up with that? No, we got 8 Fs to go through. This is number 4. Freedom. Freedom. What does freedom have to do with food banks? What does freedom have to do with hunger? Why freedom? I'm including freedom because quite often, too many of us, we forget and we take freedom for granted. I believe that we cannot truly be free if we don't know where our next meal is coming from. If I don't know how I'm going to feed my child today, I'm not free. Eleanor Roosevelt said, "The freedom of man, I contend, is the freedom to eat." The freedom of man is the freedom to eat. The work that you do every day allows people to eat nutritious meals. The work you do allows people to be free. And that is my 4th F. Keep going. F number 5. This is going to hurt some people's feelings. That's okay. F number 5 is fight. Fight. Come up. We must fight for change, period. We must advocate for policy change. We must work harder. We must fight harder. We absolutely must change the system that actually creates hunger in the first place. Food insecurity affects all communities, but it affects some communities more than others. This has been a challenging year. And I got to tell you, every time somebody tells me, yeah, we're all in the same boat, I cringe and I have to slap a few people. We are not all in the same boat. We may be in the same storm. I will give you that. We are in the same storm, but we are not in the same boat. And y'all see that every day when we're addressing our communities and our communities in need. According to the Bread for the World Institute, and I think Bread for the World Institute is with us today. If you're here today, say hi on chat. Bread for the World Institute reports that people of color in Arizona are 3 times more likely than whites to live with hunger and poverty. 3 times more likely. That ain't the same boat. Now, I know there's a session later today with elected officials to talk about policy, so I won't spend a whole lot of time here other than to say that we need to fight harder. Our legislators love the nonprofit community. They do. They absolutely love us, but they love us like they love a Labrador Retriever. They appreciate us, they encourage us, they pat us on the heads, they say sweet things to us, but they don't prioritize us, and they know that we will not bite when they don't come through with their promises. Ouch. Time and time again, the independent sector, various nonprofit lobbyists have fought for the nonprofit community and garnered promises. Much of those promises do not gain traction. And part of that is because we don't fight hard enough. The money's there, it's allocated to other places. We need to fight harder and louder. And we need to bring our friends with us. Okay? As a collective force, food banks have the potential to be a tremendous, powerful force for social justice. I love the fact that Yuma Food Bank boldly on their website says, we are at war with hunger. Okay, now, come on. Love that. We all must fight and fight harder. That's our F word, number 5. Number 6, this is gonna be quick because I don't like to talk about stuff that is unpleasant, but number 6 is unpleasant. And those are our foes. Foes, F-O-E, foe. Now, a couple of y'all are thinking, Casey's thinking, foe, we don't have any foes, we're the foe, we feed people. Everybody loves us, nobody loves you. Okay. Oh, Casey, I'll give you that. Everybody loves us. Do they love us enough? That's my question. Enough. Bobby got it right. I'm with you, Sister Norris. I'm with you. Do they love us enough to introduce us to folks and to pass legislation and to allocate resources to support the work that we do? Do they love us that much? Because y'all know the answer to that. So they may not be a foe, but I would not put them in the friend column. If they're not working to advance our mission to end hunger. What's our role here? What's our to-do? We need to make it abundantly clear what we need and what support we need. And we also need to support those people. We need to support those legislators who have our best interests at heart. I don't know if y'all heard me there. We need to support those legislators who have our best interest at heart. We need to turn foes and fence sitters, because a lot of folks are fence sitters out there. We need to turn them into our friends and support our mission. Y'all still with me? Okay, I'm seeing some, okay, good. Now we keep moving. I'm on my 7th F. Family is the biggest. This is the most important. Funding. Your 7th F is funding. If you hear nothing else from me, if you tune out, if you go get a cup of coffee, know that funding is what I want to drill into your brain. It is critical that your organization has a diversified and effective revenue strategy. And a strategy, you must prioritize revenue for your strategy. As I said earlier, you got no money, then you got no mission, period. A few of you are thinking, yeah, but I don't work in development. So Bernard, this one's not really for me because I'm not in development. Susan over there is in development. Terry's in development. Jeff, no, stop that. Stop that mess. If you work for a nonprofit organization, you work in development. Now, y'all in the back row didn't hear me. If you work in nonprofit, you work in development. It's just that simple. Matter of fact, I work in development. 4 words. I know you're in your room all by yourself. I see you, Jerry. I want y'all to say it out loud. I work in development. Repeat after me. I work in development. Okay, and keep moving. Still on funding though, because funding I'm gonna take some time on. How might we generate revenue? That's a question every single person on your team should be asking. How do we fill in the blank for revenue? Who do you know that might contribute? Friends and family, your neighbor, cousins? What do you have that can generate money? What do you do that can be monetized? Some of y'all, your revenue strategy is to, one, find out who makes grants. Let me apply it to everybody. And then in November, send out an appeal. That's your strategy. Oh, baby. No. Stop that. Stop that. We're going to do 30,000 foot. I didn't do a deep dive on every single organization that's here. So I'm not going to speak to your specific organization, but I'm going to do a 30,000 foot overview of strategies that I want you and your team to think about for revenue for your organization. And again, I'm going to serve these buffet style. You may end up saying, that one's not for me. I want more of that one. Great. Dig in deeper. But here are 5 strategies for you to focus and prioritize. First strategy is individual giving, and it's first on purpose because it's the most important. Come on, Terry, you with me? Your individual giving, your revenue stream, your individual giving as part of your revenue needs to be at least 35% of your cash revenue, at least. If your revenue currently is not 35% from individual giving, that's what you need to work on. That's your new goal. Write it down. A year from now, I'm gonna call you back personally, Mark, and say, where are you? So that's your goal, 35%. If you're already at 35%, and some of y'all are, then your new goal is 50%. Some of you are like, what? You have lost your mind. No, that's your new goal, 50%. If you're already at 50%, then I'm gonna leave you alone. If you're at 50%, I'm gonna say, God bless you, you're doing good work. I got other strategies for you. I've looked at several, not all, but several of your revenue streams at your 990s and your website. And for those of you who have it, your annual report. Some of y'all have individual giving under 10%. Under 10%. Really? That means you definitely haven't tapped your friends and family. Some of y'all have revenue from individual giving over 60%. Well, okay now. Okay. That didn't happen by accident. You worked at that. I applaud you. Overall, in the United States, 75% is the revenue percent that individuals give to nonprofits. Overall. So that's, medical centers, that's hospitals, that's arts organizations. So if you're at 8% and you're thinking 35% is too high, your competition's at 75%. And I did say competition because it is competition. So individual giving, set a goal, set a plan, then build a strategy for individual giving. Do not ignore your volunteers as you build your strategy. And if I were you, I'd build a separate strategy just for volunteers. Why? Because they already know you and they already say, I love you. And don't make me come track you down when you say, oh, but they're giving their time, so we're not going to ask them for their treasure. Have you lost your mind? Ask. As Bobby would tell you, the reason they don't give is because you didn't ask them to give. Going back to Alameda County Food Bank, I was at one of their big holiday things, something, and they had some new volunteer teams and they were doing everything. And we finished and they wrapped up and they thanked everybody. And, your work today will feed X number of people and this and this and this. And because it's my job, I was waiting for the ask. Thank you, drive home carefully, have a good day. There's a little over 100 people here. Are you gonna tell us how we might donate to the organization? Oh, we work in volunteerism. So on our website, there's a donate link, so you can go there. Well, fortunately, I know the food bank really well. The executive director actually are friends. So I'm like, can I just jump in for just a second? And I know the volunteer coordinator who was there who was doing that was like, oh, what the hell is he gonna do and why is he doing this? So I felt I had to, a speech on why it was important, more important, rather than you run to Costco and buy 2 packs of pasta and bring it over and donate that and think you did something, which is sweet, but don't do that. Write them a check for $25. Write them a check for $100, because here's what they can do with that. And it was clear to me, looking at the volunteer folks, had no clue what I was talking about, which is a problem. They did a great work as a volunteer. So how do we engage our entire team, especially when we have volunteers there, on individual giving? How do we do that? We set a strategy to do that. It's not difficult. We just don't do it. So when we work on that strategy, when you get a chance, go to blackbaud.com, BLACKBAUD.com, and look at their 2020 charitable giving data. It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. Data show, there's lots of data on individual giving and how to build a strategy. It's free. And some of you are like, yeah, but I don't want to give up. You don't have to give up any information. They make it really available. Go to their website, say, review the report. It doesn't ask you your email address, doesn't ask you what your mother's maiden name is, doesn't ask you, you don't have to create a password, just click on it and read the information. So go there. The data shows lots of data on donors. When you build your strategy, a couple of things to keep in mind. Stop the once a year request. Stop it. Because you get a one and done and no retention. What you want is multiple giving. What you really, really want is monthly giving. And some of y'all are good about that. Some of y'all on your website are really good about, when I click on the donor page, oh yeah, I checked y'all out. When you click on the donor page, would you like to make a monthly gift? That's great. Now the question, would you like to make a monthly gift? That's great, not good enough. It didn't pull my heartstrings, but you do want that monthly gift. If you can't get a monthly gift from someone, then you want at least to get them to give 2 or 3 times a year. Why? Because every data shows that if an organization gives to you 2 or 3 times a year, they're more than likely to fund you year after year after year. You want donor retention. One of my biggest concerns are when organizations say, oh yeah, you know, Bernard is a great partner of ours. He gives to us every year. No, I'm not. I'm not a partner. I hear from you once a year. That's not partnership. Couple of things quickly on individual giving. Online giving is growing and growing, and it's going to soon be the most important piece of giving. Number 2 is this. You can't see, this is this weird thing. Your phone. 28% of people did their online gift with a mobile device. If your donate button, if your organization is not set up for mobile giving, you're shooting yourself in the foot. So that's it. Build a social media strategy. That's the other part of this also, because in order to grow, and it's free for the most part, build your strategy and build your brand via social media. I'm going to stop there specifically on individual giving and ask if there are any questions on individual giving, because then I'm going to move to the second strategy in fundraising, which is foundations. Any questions? Frank Kitchen, donor cultivation, testament. Love that. Frank, yes. Quarterly minimum, reach out to your donors and potential donors. Now, if you've got great storytelling, and please have some great stories to tell. If you've got great storytelling, reach out once a month. Tell us a story every month that'll make us think about the work that you're doing. Touch my heart, not my head, touch my heart. Okay, I'm going to keep moving on with the next funding strategy, which is foundations. There are huge and substantial grant opportunities with private foundations and independent foundations. Most of you aren't tapping into those. Most of you aren't. There are 80,000 independent foundations in the United States, 80,000. Most of them, around 70% of them, are small with less than 4 paid staff. And many of them have 0 paid staff because it's family members who are running it. $1 trillion. $1 trillion. That's how much money those foundations have in their assets. And most of them are invitation only. So you're saying, oh, I can't find the application. How do I apply for that $1 trillion? You don't. They find you. They find you. So what they do, what does that mean? That means they know kind of sort of what they want to fund, maybe even where they want to fund it. So they or their interns or their niece goes online to do the research, and the first place they go is your website. That's right, that's the first place they go. Where else would they go? They go to your website. And if they're not impressed with what they see on their website, you're not gonna get funded. You don't even know that they looked at your website. You don't even know that you were in consideration. So what does that tell you to do? Some of y'all have websites that are far from impressive to a program officer. Now, part of that I get, because your website was not built and not designed for a program officer. It was not. It was built and designed to let the community know what services you provide and how to access those services. Fantastic, and that's what it should be, yes. And it should also be easy to navigate for anybody, for a major donor, for a program officer at a foundation, so that they can look and see what you're doing. Right? Is your finances, are they transparent? Do you tell a compelling story about your organization? All of y'all tell a good head story, here's our impact, here's what we do, we're a good organization, support us, or come get our stuff. Great. But how do you move my heart? How do you make me say, oh my God, look what they're doing. Look at how that really helped that family. Look at that. Did you read how blah, blah, blah? That's what we need to do. Your website is your primary branding vehicle. Revisit it. Even better, have someone not associated with your organization. Have one of your friends or family members look at your organization and look at your website and then tell you about it. Give you honest feedback on it. It should be engaging for potential donors. That's all I'm going to say about foundations. Other than the third thing on foundations is if you have not made good friends with the program officers at the Arizona Community Foundation, run, don't walk, run and make friends over there. Why? Some of you are thinking, yeah, but they don't fund us, so I'm not asking you to fund them. I'm not asking them to fund you. Donor advised funds. I'm assuming everybody knows what DAFs are, what donor advised funds. If you don't, put in the chat and I'll explain donor advised funds. Donor advised funds are when donors go to an institution, the foundation, and drop a whole bunch of money in there. Arizona Community Foundation have over $100 million in donor advised funds. If you're not getting a piece of that, that's not their money. That's not the Arizona Community Foundation's money. That's Mrs. Smith's money and Mr. Jones's money and Mrs. Garcia's money that they parked there. You cannot reach out to Mrs. Garcia directly. You can't reach out to Mr. Smith directly because you don't even know where they are and how much money they have in there. But the program officer at Arizona Community Foundation does. You want that program officer to whisper, hey, in your donor advised fund, you may want to drop a dime to blah, blah, blah. That's what you want to happen. And that's how it happens. Too many nonprofits aren't clued into how that happens. If you wait for Mrs. Garcia to find you on her own, for Mr. Smith to find you on his own, that may never happen. Or it may happen as a one and done. A lot of one and dones this past year. We know that in times of disaster, there's a lot of stuff and a lot of philanthropy, but most of it is one and done. Which is great to address the immediate need. You want something long lasting. You want some of those donor advised funds. Let me keep going. Fourth funding strategy is earned revenue and or program service revenue. Make your own money. I personally believe that every food bank pantry should develop a strategy on earned revenue. I've had a number of nonprofit organizations say, we're nonprofit, we can't earn our own money, we can't make money. Oh baby, yes you can, yes you can. Matter of fact, there are some organizations, nonprofit organizations, the majority of their revenue is earned. Earned. St. Mary's Food Bank, if my memory corrects me, $4 to $5 million of their revenue is either earned revenue or program service revenue. So if some of you are thinking, we can't do that, talk to St. Mary's Food Bank, find out how they do that. Now, earned revenue is not for everybody. Program service revenue is not for everybody. Again, for the buffet, you may take a nibble of it and say, yeah, I'm going to pass on that. I'm good with you. But if you don't at least take a nibble, if you don't at least try it, you won't know that this actually may be a really good thing for this. Remember, if it's earned or program service, unrestricted. It's your own money to do with what you want to. Now, how do you do that? You need to do an asset assessment. And if it's earned revenue, it's basically, what do you have that you can monetize? What do you know that you can monetize? What do you sell? What is it? My favorite story on earned revenue, and then I'm going to go on to the next funding strategy, is Woodland Park Zoo. So Woodland Park Zoo, small zoo in, what time is it? Woodland Park Zoo is a small zoo in Washington, in Seattle. And it's a zoo. One of their docents, a volunteer, avid gardener, food, said, I want to take some elephant dung home and put it in my garden. Is that okay? And the staff was like, you want to take some elephant poop home with you? Sure, knock yourself out. She did. And mixed in her garden. And of course, she had a bumper crop year, and all of her garden club friends were amazed. And, it's the elephant dung. It works really well. So more people wanted it. And then it was like, let's try the zebra dung. And basically, a couple of garden clubs were regularly taking poop from the zoo. And the zoo was like, great, we spend over $100,000 to get rid of it. It's waste. So knock yourself out. Well, then somebody in marketing was like, what's all with the people in the burlap bags and the poop? So they explained it. Fast forward, and y'all don't believe me? Go to Google Zoodoo, Z-O-O-D-O-O. Fast forward a number of years, Woodland Park Zoo has an earned revenue stream of poop. They bring in over $500,000 a year by selling poop. Now, granted, they package it lovely. You can buy a small bag, you can buy 100-pound bag, they have different mixes. I want herbivores, I want this, whatever. It's a whole, they have I am not exaggerating when you look at the website, a fecal fest. Yes, they do. They have, the person who runs the fecal fest is the Prince of Poop. They have marketed this like nobody's business. But the point is, they took $150,000 that they used, that was an expense to get rid of it. So that 150 is gone. Well, they probably still have some expense. And brought in $500,000 in revenue because of something that a volunteer brought up. This has value. No, if they had a strategic planning meeting and say, let's sit down and talk about what our assets are, nobody would have said poop. Nobody. Think creatively of what assets your organization has. And who can you bring to the table to come forward and say, here's an asset, what can we do with this? So, said another way, what poop do you have that you can monetize? Next one, and final funding strategy is corporate. Some of y'all put corporate as number one. Corporate's number 5. From a funding perspective. Now, when it comes to nutritious value, individual giving is high fiber, high protein, low calorie. Individual giving is it. Corporate giving will fill you up, but it's not nutritious. And it's not sustainable. Now, corporate partnerships, food, in-kind donations, beautiful. Go for every in-kind donation you can possibly get. But know that when it comes to corporate funding, that's going to be the hardest one to crack. That's why I put that one the last one. When you're building that strategy, think deal over appeal. Because philanthropy, the appeal, the please give me, is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking in corporations. But if you can come to them with a deal, we've got a great opportunity to engage your employees in a volunteer thing. That's a deal. We have an opportunity to partner with you on our golf outing. That's a deal. So it's how do you help the company? Because 9 times out of 10, that's sustainable and that can get you more money rather than The need is great in the community. We need to provide more food. Please give us $20,000 to buy food to do X, Y, and Z. That's getting harder and harder and harder to nail that one. And people say, but why? The company should do X, Y, and Z. The truth is the business of business is business. That's the truth. And businesses are getting squeezed harder and harder and harder. As you're doing this strategy, please, please, please do not ignore local businesses. Too often we look for the big brands that are national. And that's going to be a harder nut to crack, as opposed to Castro Chevrolet, or as opposed to the local attorneys and insurance. Think local also. And then think about what those deals could be. Okay. I'm not going to talk about government funding for a couple of things. Some of y'all have a really good gig with corporate funding already, government funding. And Director Weishart already talked about some of the things that Department of Economic Security is doing. So, and Arizona Food Bank Network has resources for you on government funding. So in the spirit of time, that's an important funding stream. I'm not going to talk about government funding. I'm going to get back to the last and final F word, the 8th F word, and that is frustration. The 8th F word and the final F word is frustration. So Chronicle of Philanthropy did a survey last year of over 10,000 nonprofit leaders, 10,000 fundraising leaders. Over 50% of them said they will be leaving their job within 2 years. And they're leaving their job within 2 years, primarily because of 4 reasons. Too much pressure to meet unrealistic fundraising goals. Hello. Pay is too low. They're unhappy with the organizational culture, and they feel unappreciated. Let me say that again. I'm unappreciated. I don't like the organizational structure. Pay is too low, and there's too much pressure. Think about your organization. How much of that resonates with you? Because it's pretty much true across the board in organizations. And the other part of it is too often we feel that we do not have the license to be frustrated or to complain because we see firsthand the needs in our communities and we say, we have it a whole lot better than they do, so I'm just not going to complain. She has it worse than I am. I know I'm frustrated, but I'm not going to say anything. He has it worse than I am. That may be true. But please know you can be extremely grateful and frustrated at the same time. You need to work on that, address that, vocalize it. You have the right to feel whatever you want to feel, whatever you are feeling, regardless of what others are going through. Feeling frustrated doesn't make you ungrateful. And some of you are frustrated right now. That does not make you ungrateful for what you have. It does make you human. I'm going to sideline for just a second because I remembered something that Angie said earlier. Board members, there's some board members on here. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Board members, I think I missed something. I'm coming to it. Board members, y'all need to step the F up. Y'all need to step the F up. I know some of you have. Some of y'all have stepped up the F, the fundraising, the friend, the family, but not all of y'all have. And some of y'all, when you stepped up 10%. The staff of the organization stepped up 150%, but y'all stepped up 10%. Really? No. So what can you, as a board member, as a leader of the organization, what can you do to ease the frustration? What can you do to relook at those fundraising goals? What can you do to address the pay? What can you do to address the culture? Ask yourself those questions. I'm not saying tomorrow fix it, but if you're not even thinking about it, if you don't realize, because I'm gonna tell you, your team is frustrated. I'm gonna tell you that. If you don't realize that, you need to realize it today. And then set a strategy on how can we address that. Okay, now, I'm gonna take you off the hot seat and going back to check in with your teams. That's all. Check in with your teams. I am going to go to the chat because somebody said I missed something, and if I did, I want to know individuals, foundations. I think I missed something. Okay. So funding. Number 1, individual. Number 2, earned revenue. Number 3, foundations, DAFs, corporate. Well, let me know. Y'all are essential workers. That's a term we didn't even know existed a year and a half ago. Yet you are. And yet you're not valued quite often. I value you. We heard everyone talk about how valued you are, but we have to value the work that you do in our communities every day, and I do. The work is frustrating. It's tireless. It's tiring. It's overtasked and it's underpaid. And somebody had said earlier that you're tired, and that made me smile because no, you were tired before we went into the pandemic. Y'all were tired 18 months ago, and then you got fatigued 2 or 3 months into the pandemic. By December, you were just utterly and completely exhausted. I don't know what the word is after exhausted. I don't know what y'all are now, but it is crazy. I see it, I hear it, and I appreciate you. You may not know how much you're appreciated, but you are appreciated. Dr. King said, I have the audacity to believe that people everywhere can have 3 meals a day for their bodies, education and culture for their minds, and the dignity, equality, and freedom for their spirits. Your work helps bring Dr. King's belief and his faith to life. I appreciate you more than you can know. I greatly appreciate it. So I ran over time, and I was going to have 10 minutes for questions, but I ran way over time. So Angie, I don't know what to do now rather than just say thank you for this opportunity and give you a huge apology for going over my allotted time. Jeff told me not to go over time, and I did. So I'm worried.
You did amazing, Mr. Boudreaux. You did really a fantastic job. I know I saw lots of good questions and comments. I think you covered the 5. I think the one that is probably a tripping point for many is the donor advised funds. I think you gave great advice. That is an untapped resource. I think all of us who use donor advised funds are watching Fidelity and its growth. And so we recognize that is a place for particularly those who donate due to tax reasons to be able to put funds there. So if you don't know about that, I encourage you all to reach out to Terry at the Arizona Food Bank Network. She can explain donor advised funds. Again, call the Community Foundation. Those are all great advice to make sure that we tap into those donors. I think for me personally, I have a charge from you about turning some foes into friends in our fight against hunger. So just a reminder that if they are not fighting with us, they are fighting against us. And how much more can we be doing to demand change from our legislators, from our communities, and from certainly to be able to help those that we serve. So I thank you. Unfortunately, we do not have a lot of time for questions, but I definitely want to say that you touched both my head in thinking about next strategies, as well as my heart with your story about what I'm going to call your church co-op. I think that is an amazing way to be able to share with your community in a very a way that doesn't make beggars out of our neighbors. So I think that was wonderful, and I really appreciate your time today.
I loved it. I love this opportunity. Whenever I can, bottom line is you're my people. I love food, work in food. So you're my people. It's just that simple. Just that simple. Thank you. Thank you. I'm turning it back over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. As we mentioned, we have a little bit of a break, so you're going to get a couple of minutes, but I do want to tell you about what's going to happen next. There is some housekeeping. You all know where your own bathrooms are, so I don't have to tell you that part of this equation, but I just want to mention that we are recording this conference. The sessions are going to be available on our website in the near future. If you were unable to hear something or if you missed something, we encourage you to keep your cameras on during the breakouts or during any part of this session. Obviously for speakers, that's great because it's engaging. But if you, for whatever reason, need to turn your cameras off, because you don't want to be part of the recording or just have to take care of something, that's understandable as well. In a moment, we're going to head into our breakout sessions. And at the bottom of the screen, pretty soon you will see that there is going to be a breakout session button. When you select it, a new screen is going to appear that's going to allow you to select your breakout session. You will have the ability to return into the main session if you make a selection and for whatever reason pick the wrong one. And obviously, again, reach out to our team if you have concerns or questions about the breakout sessions. I think most of you are familiar with Zoom at this point, but for those of you that haven't been on 682 Zoom calls this year, I will acknowledge that you've all done such an amazing job with your mute buttons. I really appreciate that. So thank you for that. If you don't know where your mute button is, it's at the bottom in the left-hand corner of your screen. Please use that. Several of you have used the reaction buttons when you agree with something or disagree with something. Please continue to do that during the breakout sessions. And many of you have also utilized the chat. So please take the time to ask questions, communicate in a discussion way that's not distracting to our speakers. So thank you so much. The AZFBA team will moderate those chat rooms, and we're excited to be able to use that. There is now going to be a 10-minute break. Grab your cold drinks, select your session. As soon as you make your selection, you'll be sent to that room. So again, if you need assistance, please reach out to us. Once your first session closes, you'll be returned automatically to the main room, and we'll see you all back here at 11:30 for our final session. So thanks, everyone.